I never imagined that the final day of my career, the day meant to honor 37 years of teaching, would be the day my wife decided to humiliate me. But life has a strange way of showing you who truly stands beside you and who was only there for the applause. My name is Walter Pierce, and for nearly 4 decades I was known as Professor Pierce. Literature, philosophy, and ethics, those were my worlds. I taught my students that words carry power, that loyalty matters, and that a person's character reveals itself slowly, like a photograph developing in the dark. I didn't know that in my own home, a betrayal was developing just as quietly. The retirement banquet was held in the college's historic courtyard. Ivy-covered brick walls, golden evening lights, and the smell of catered rosemary chicken drifting through warm spring air. Colleagues shook my hand, former students hugged me, and the dean gave a lovely speech about legacy. I should have felt proud, grateful, fulfilled. Instead, I felt a strange tightness in my chest, like the air was trying to warn me. My wife, Elena, stood near me, dressed in emerald green, always elegant, always composed. For years, she had been my companion at every academic dinner, every conference reception, every reading event. People admired her grace, her laugh, her way of making a room feel like she owned it. But lately, something about her felt distant. She spoke less, sighed more, looked at her phone a little too often. I assumed she was simply tired of the academic social circles. I never doubted her loyalty. Why would I? We had built a life together, a home, a family, 32 years of marriage. You don't throw that away like a receipt you don't need anymore. At least, I didn't think you could. They handed me the microphone for what was supposed to be a short speech. I thanked the faculty, the students, the university president, and then I looked at Elena. My wife, I said, voice steady, who carried me through late nights of grading and early mornings of lectures. I share this moment with you. Some people clapped. Elena didn't. She stepped forward. I thought she wanted to hug me. Instead, she touched the microphone and said, "Actually, Walter, there's something I'd like to share tonight." A hush fell. She smiled, an unfamiliar smile, sharp and cold. Since Walter will no longer be working, this is the perfect time to let everyone know I've decided to leave him. The courtyard fell silent. Forks paused in midair. Someone muttered, "Good Lord." She continued, her voice light, almost amused. I can't spend the rest of my life with a man who has nothing exciting left to offer. I mean, what am I supposed to do with a retired literature professor? Discuss poetry over prune juice? A few shocked gasps. One awkward laugh. My ears rang. She wasn't finished. I've already spoken with the attorneys, and since I supported him through his entire career, it's only fair I receive my share. The house, the savings, the pension. I think I've earned it. I felt every stare, every whisper, heat rising to my face like the sun setting on my dignity. She ended her little performance with 2 final words. "He's useless now." The microphone hit the table with a soft thud. Elena walked away, not out of embarrassment, but with confidence, like she had already won. I didn't speak, I didn't shout, I didn't chase her or beg her to stay. I simply stood still, staring at the spot where she had stood moments ago. Useless. The word echoed through my mind, tapping on old memories like knuckles on a door. Late nights writing lectures while she slept, paying for her business classes, buying her that boutique store she always dreamed of. Useless. The dean placed a hand on my shoulder. "Walter, I am so sorry." But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was something colder, something quieter. Because Elena didn't know what I knew. She didn't know about the documents, the account transfers, the updated will, the business ownership revisions she had never bothered to read. She had no idea that the man she just called useless had been preparing for this moment almost a year. Not out of suspicion, but out of wisdom. You see, I had spent my life teaching others how great tragedies were often written long before the final chapter. And in my marriage, ink had been drying for a long time. That night, I drove home alone. The house felt different, as if it already belonged to someone else. Her favorite silk scarf was missing from the rack. A few photo frames were gone. A suitcase imprint remained on the bedspread. But the silence didn't hurt. It clarified. I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, my hands steady, my breathing calm. And as I stood in my study, surrounded by books that I had carried for decades, I whispered, "Useless. We'll see." Because Elena was right about one thing. This was the perfect time for change. Just not the change she was expecting. And if she thought she had seen the end of my story, she had no idea what chapter was coming next.
I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just stared at her. 28 years of marriage, 3 apartments, 2 houses, a lifetime of inside jokes and late-night talks, all tossed away like an old grocery list. I swear, I felt something inside me go quiet. Not break, just power down. She walked out of that hall with a smile that didn't belong to the woman I once knew. People pretended not to notice, but trust me, they did. You can always feel silence when it's heavy enough. That night I sat at the edge of our bed, well, my bed now, and replayed our life like flipping through a photo album with missing pages. I remembered the early days when we were young and broke and would split a single milkshake because it was either that or no lunch. I remember how I used to work double shifts so she could study. I remembered holding her hand at her father's funeral. I remembered the sound of her laugh before money made her voice sharper. I thought love was a promise. Turns out, for some people, it's a contract with an expiration date. A week later, I met her lawyer, then mine. She fought for everything: house, car, savings. She even wanted half of my retirement fund. Half, after calling me useless. I didn't curse her. I didn't beg. Begging is for people who still believe someone cares. The court dates dragged for months, and every time I sat there listening to them debate my life like numbers on a spreadsheet, I noticed something. She wasn't alone. A man was always waiting outside. Young, expensive suit, fake confidence. So that was the guy, the new chapter, the upgrade. I didn't hate him. He didn't steal her. She walked away on her own 2 feet. But see, that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just take something from you. It gives something too. Clarity. One night, I opened a dusty old notebook where I used to write goals for our future. I crossed out every line, every trip we planned, every renovation idea, every dream with her name in it. And I wrote one sentence. Build a life she can never re-enter. Not revenge out of anger, revenge out of rebirth. The next morning, I left that house, the one I built, the one she wanted so badly, and I handed her the keys. No fight, no tears, just a smile she couldn't understand. Because she thought she had taken everything. She had no idea what I was about to become. I rented a small apartment near the coast. Peeling paint, leaky faucet, floors that creaked like old bones, but it had a view of the ocean. And for the first time in years, I slept like a child who didn't owe the world anything. I started walking every morning. Same route, same old wooden bench facing the water. Salt in the air, distant sound of waves, kids playing in the sand. It felt like the world was rinsing my soul, one tide at a time. Then, one morning, an idea visited me. Not loud, not rushed, just a whisper. Tell your story. Not to get her back, not to make her jealous, but because there are people like me out there, sitting alone in the ruins of a life they built for someone else. I didn't know it then, but that whisper would change everything. Money, purpose, people, all of it. I started writing again, only this time it wasn't about us. It was about me, and the storm I walked through, and the man I was becoming. I didn't want pity. I wanted power. And life, it turns out, was more than willing to hand it to me.
I didn't plan on becoming anything impressive. I just wanted a reason to wake up without feeling like a broken piece of furniture thrown on the curb. So I took my notebook to that same coastal bench every morning. I wrote memories, lessons, confessions. Messy at first, like untangling old fishing lines. But the more I wrote, the more I understood the truth. I didn't lose her. I lost the version of me who thought I needed her to breathe. One day, a young guy, mid-20s, headphones around his neck, sat beside me. He had seen me writing for weeks and finally asked, "Sir, are you an author or something?" I laughed. Not the kind. A real one. "Son, I'm just a man trying to make sense of life before it ends." He said he made motivational videos online and asked if I'd share something for his channel. I didn't think much of it. I spoke for maybe 5 minutes about betrayal, growing old, starting over. 3 days later, he ran to me on that same boardwalk, panting. "Sir, that video went viral." I didn't fully understand what that meant. Viral was a word I associated with colds and hospitals. But he showed me. Millions of views. Comments like, "Who is this man? I needed this today. My husband left me. This helped me breathe again. I thought I was the only one rebuilding my life at 60. For the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel invisible. People began asking for more. That young man, Evan, helped me set up a small studio in my apartment. Nothing fancy. A desk, a microphone, a lamp that flickered when it felt moody. I recorded stories from my life, lessons, warnings, hope. And strangely, I started earning from it. I remember seeing the first payment hit my account. It wasn't huge, but I stared at the screen for a good 5 minutes, not because of the dollar amount, but because I made it without sacrificing myself. Months passed. My audience grew. My voice reached places I'd never seen. Men who lost everything. Women rebuilding after decades of manipulation. Young people afraid of love. People in pain who finally felt understood. And then, one evening, everything changed. I received an email. A short one. I saw your video today. I didn't realize I destroyed the man you were. I'm sorry. L. Her. She had found me. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't speed up. I just sat there, calm as a still lake under moonlight. Not because I no longer cared, but because caring didn't hurt anymore. I didn't reply. Not then. A few weeks later, a knock at my door. I opened it, and there she stood, the woman who once walked away when I needed her most. She looked different, smaller somehow. Not in size, just in presence, like life had sanded down her edges. "May I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked into my little apartment, looked around at the books, the microphone, the wall of letters from people who said my words kept them alive. "You're famous," she whispered. "No, I'm heard. That's enough." She sat on the couch, hands twisting nervously. "I made a mistake. He left and everything fell apart. I thought you loved me too much to ever move on." There it was, the truth behind her confidence. She didn't just expect me to stay in love. She expected me to stay broken. I didn't move on to hurt you. I moved on because I deserved to. Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't sway me. Sympathy, yes. Weakness, no. "I want to come back. We can start over. I know you still care." I looked at her for a long moment, a whole history sitting between us, like a silent ghost. Then I said the sentence I had been writing toward without knowing. "I forgive you, but I don't want you back." That was the day I realized something. Revenge doesn't always look like payback. Sometimes it's just living a life that makes the person who broke you realize they never truly finished the job.
After that day, life became a different kind of rhythm. I continued telling my stories, recording my voice, reaching strangers I would never meet in person. Letters came in from people thanking me for being honest, for showing them that starting over wasn't shameful, that age didn't define what you could do next. I began taking walks earlier in the mornings, watching the sunrise paint the sky in colors that made every previous heartbreak feel like a faint memory. I bought a small notebook for each day, jotting down moments I wanted to remember, not regrets, not plans for revenge, but moments that made me feel alive again. The woman who betrayed me? She never came back. But strangely, I didn't miss her. Not because I wasn't human, but because I had finally realized my own worth. The lessons, the heartbreak, the betrayal, they had all been tools I didn't know I needed.
One afternoon, I found myself back at the coffee shop where I had first recorded my thoughts. The same corner table, sunlight pouring softly across my face. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth remind me that life had a rhythm of its own. A man of 60 doesn't need the world to tell him he's alive. He just knows. I laughed quietly to myself, thinking about Gregory, about how little he could have guessed that his actions would lead me here, stronger, smarter, independent. I hadn't wanted revenge in the way movies show it. I wanted life. And in the end, life was the most satisfying revenge of all. Sometimes people ask me if I ever think about reconciliation. I shake my head, not because anger lingers, but because forgiveness doesn't always require reunion. Forgiveness is a gift to yourself, not to them. I raised my cup to no one in particular, to every person who had ever been betrayed, abandoned, or underestimated. This one's for you. The world moves fast, but it doesn't move without notice, and sometimes the person who seemed small and broken becomes the one standing tallest in the room, calm, wise, and unshakable. Because at 60, after all the pain, the lies, and the heartbreak, I discovered the simplest truth. The best revenge is a life well lived, a story honestly told, and a heart that refuses to stay broken. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a moment, and let the coffee warm me from the inside out. Tomorrow would bring more stories, more laughter, maybe even more lessons, but it would bring me, whole and unafraid. And that, I decided, was enough.